Kia ora koutou, nai mai, haere mai. Welcome everyone, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for this session. I'm Jane, and I'm delighted to have one of our customer success team join me this afternoon, Nicola. So welcome, Nicola. The aim of today's the topic of today's webinar is to tidy up your GST with confidence, and the aim of the webinar is to learn how to fix the most common GST issues. The webinar will be a casual interview style webinar and will run for about 15 minutes with plenty of time for questions and answers. So if you've got any questions at all during the webinar, please put it in the feedback, and I'll be able to monitor that as we go. The webinar will be recorded for future reference. So, Nicola, what are the key messages you want to get across today?
Oh, brilliant. Thanks for having us with you there today. I'm looking forward to a fun, easygoing session with you all today. In Farm Focus, we make it simple to remain GST compliant. Hopefully today we can give you the confidence to review and submit your GST returns. The coding work you complete in Farm Focus is the data that builds your return. There is no magic.
Before we start, though, Nicola, I get a few warnings on my GST returns when I go into them. Can you tell me more about those?
Yeah, Jane, it's a brilliant place to start. And I'm just going to share my demo database there with you. So hopefully everybody's seeing the dairy demo there that we've got within Farm Focus. And what I'm going to do is just jump into my GST return via reports here. Jump into my GST return. Jump into my current return here for the August-September period.
Just one moment. I've got a message saying that they can't see your screen. Can people confirm that they can't see? What are they seeing Nicola's demonstration database? Can someone say yes or no on the chat, please? Yes, you are seeing it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So straight away, when I come into my current GST return, I'm prompted by a couple of messages there. These messages will appear in an orange or red box. There are two orange warning boxes, one informing you that your bank accounts are unbalanced. This balancing lies outside of this current GST return period, but within the box will be a link to click on to go to balancing. The second relates to invoices sitting in your needs action, asking should any of these invoices be matched to a bank transaction before we finalise our GST return. These orange warning boxes are only warnings. They will not stop you from submitting your return. The warning and the red box will stop you from submitting your return. And this relates to uncoded bank transactions that haven't been either matched or coded yet that fall within the current GST period. You'll notice here in my red warning, it's letting me know that I've got 8 uncoded transactions. So this will put a block on me from submitting my return. And if you can't see your current GST return on your page here, check, has the previous return been finalised? If not, complete finalising your return. Once finalised, the next return will become available for you to view. Right, so we have got a slide there with our common themes. We'll just pull that up. Have you got that slide there, Jane?
It hasn't come up. Do you want me? I'll share again. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we are. Thanks. Yep. Brilliant. So within CST, we do see some common themes around GST time. We see a lot of phone calls and messages about partially paid invoices. We receive phone calls in regards to clearing in-store payments. We have phone calls in regards to processing our Fonterra and our farm source invoices, coding rules that maybe once worked that aren't working now, questions around balancing, and how to actually review my GST return before submitting it there. So I'm just going to jump back into my demo database.
So you've given us this sort of high-level overview of the type of questions you get, but can you draw those down into a bit more detail?
Brilliant. Thanks, Jane. We can definitely go into a little bit more detail with those common themes. So I'm just going to be jumping back into my demo database. And because I haven't been in my database for a few days, first thing I'm going to check is for any quick matches, making a start on clearing my needs action screen. Before I even jump into matching, I'm just going to rearrange the order of all my invoices sitting here in needs action. And by clicking on my date header, I can now be viewing my invoices that are associated with this GST return. So I'm going to jump into matching. I can see I've got two matches for direct matching there. I'm going to quickly process them. I can see my fertilizer payments come out. Brilliant. So I'm going to head back into needs action. Now looking on my left-hand side to review what invoices I've got here, I can see the first thing that catches my eye is the bright orange partially paid invoice icon. Let's have a look at that. So from time to time, we have partially paid invoices left sitting in our needs actions. And for invoices under the value of 10 cents, we now have a clever fix. And I can see here, I've underpaid my contractor invoice. I've noticed an underpayment of 4 cents. Now I can click into this invoice. I can see there the matched transaction. And I notice I've underpaid my contractor by 4 cents. And what I can do to clear this is in the invoice, jump down into my more options, select fully pay invoice, and that will process that invoice for me. Now, for invoices with a larger balance sitting as partially paid, usually they have a different why they are sitting like this. How to process these will depend on the story behind the why. Now, I want to check some of my code split rules. And certain farm expenses have a portion of GST that can be claimed as a business expense, while the rest is personal. Code split rules help me automate these transactions, ensuring accuracy and saving time. In this example, we have an electricity invoice containing a charge for the house. So if I have a look at my electricity invoice, I can see that I've coded my line for the farm electricity, but I have yet to code my house electricity. My accountant has informed me that I can claim a % of my house electricity to business GST. And to check what splits I have or how to create a split code, I can locate this information sitting here under settings, into codes, down into code split rules. Now your database may have come with 3 preset code splits. Have a quick check of them. If you feel they aren't required for yourself or you need to edit those percentage splits, please click on your 3 dots and select edit or delete. If you would like to create a new code split rule, click on add new rule. And for further information on those code split rules, definitely jump into our help desk down on the question mark there. So I'm going to jump back into my electricity invoice, click in there, and I'm going to add in my electricity code for the house. I can see before I click on house there that I have got a line value amount as well. So when I do click on my house electricity code, there is a dollar amount there for the code split to action on. I can see instantly I've had a proportion split out to business being 20% and a proportion set out to personal, which is 80%. Now I can save my invoice, and that's sitting there all fully coded. Another popular call we have to GST is when my payment doesn't match my supplier feed because of an in-store purchase. Working with my supplier statement, I noticed that my supplier feed into Farm Focus doesn't match the amount on my statement. We find the most common reason for this is in-store purchases. When a supplier feed is received into Farm Focus, it contains all of the transactions for the statement month. Sometimes items paid with cash are still GST claimable. And if I have a look in this case today, my Farmlands debit amount is not the same as my Farmlands feed. Let's have a look why. So what I can do is come in, take note of what Farmlands have debited, click into my Farmlands invoice, and the first thing I'm going to do is click up here in the top right to open up this invoice for editing. What I can do is overtype this amount for the invoice total and type in what's gone through the bank. Instantly, my invoice is unbalanced. And I can see I've got a reference to a dollar amount that it's unbalanced by. And because I've got my statement here from Farmlands, I can see that I've been in store and I've bought one of the kids a top while I've been in buying something for the farm. I can see my line of coding there for the top. And for GST purposes and for farm records, this information isn't required. So I can come across, use my 3 dots, delete that $30 charge out, and then my invoice is all balanced. I'm matching with the amount that's gone through the bank now, and I can click save.
And actually another wee tip there for farmland users, if you've got multiple farmland cards, the last 3 digits of the cards will be shown on your invoice. So it's easy to tell who's bought what with which card. And this can be really handy in my circumstance because I've got teenage kids and they tend to spend things on their farmland cards, and also to understand what staff member has bought what on the farmland card.
Oh, brilliant tip. Thanks there, Jane.
Can I just, while you're there, we've got a question here in our chat, Nicola.
Yep.
The question that was asked is, what if the unbalanced amount was required for GST?
Oh, brilliant question. Thank you for asking that. So if that was required, what you can do is I might just change the invoice back to how it was. This is still going to, up here in the top right, is still going to be representative of what goes through the bank at the moment. So this ideally is always going to match what goes through the bank. What I can come and do, if I add in the new line for the top, I've got a charge of $30 for the top. I popped it down to drawings. And I do, you know, it is something that needs to go through for GST purposes. So what I can do is I've got an unbalanced invoice. If I click add new line, this is a line I can introduce for that payment in store. So whether I use something like funds introduced, which is GST exempt. So this is me paying cash to the value of $30 in store for the top. I still need to put it through for GST purposes, but I've reflected that in my invoice now. And I still have an invoice total that matches the amount that's gone through the bank. So I can click save. So hopefully that's answered that question there for you. So if we jump back in and we'll have a look I've got some established coding rules in my database that have been helping me out with quick invoice coding and bank transaction coding. This helps me save time and it ensures coding accuracy and consistency. I've been having issues with my fuel company invoice coding rule not applying. So let's have a further look and see why. So I can see my fuel company invoices come in. I'm expecting this to be auto-coded for me because historically I've set a coding rule for this in the past. It hasn't applied today, so I'm keen to go in and have a look why. And I can see I've got fuel company, LTD, and that's how it's coming through on the invoice scanner. If I go and jump into settings, I can jump into codes. I want to have a look at my list of my invoice coding rules. So I want to sort of have a look why my fuel company one is not applying to my invoice there. You can see it right at the top here. If I couldn't see it in the top of my list, I've also got a search bar up here to come in and click into. So if I use my three dots and go edit, I can see the makeup of my coding rule. I can see the criteria that's been set for the other party and the criteria that's been set for the description as well. I notice here my LTD is actually a full word. So I'm just going to correct that now. Come down, everything else looks fine with that criteria. I'm going to check that my description field here is empty. I want to retain the individual information that comes in on each new invoice. I can click save. And I can see that correction sitting there. If I jump back into actuals, jump back into my fuel company invoice, I can see my coding rule has applied. So maybe there's been a small change in the way that the invoice has been presented by the company and they've shortened the word limited to LTD. But it's definitely worth, if you feel you've got an established coding rule, just definitely check that the criteria still matches the way that that information is coming in.
And is it case sensitive too, Nicola?
No, it's not. So it's sensitive, definitely looking in things in the criteria like with invoice numbers or transactional references with a date and a time, we'll never see those reference details repeat. So definitely just watch that you don't include individual events that ID an invoice or a bank transaction there. Brilliant, so we can click save. So I'm making my way through, getting everything coded. I can see my invoices are all coded there now for the remaining month of my GST return. So now I'm going to jump up. I can have a look. I've also got my fee coming in from Fonterra. I've got my fee coming in from my farm supply store as well. And by having those feeds coming in, it makes life a lot easier bringing in two invoices for Fonterra, one containing my milk production and my income, the second containing my deductions. I also have my farm source set up as a direct feed into Farm Focus and as a debit from my milk check before payment. Matching these invoices as Farm Focus when the payment arrives is a straightforward process via the matching tab. Now I'm just going to jump up into matching there. Oh, brilliant. So all that tidying up in my invoices has given me further quick matches. How easy is that? Now I can see my two milk invoices, my Fonterra milk income, my deductions, and because my farm store is a deduction from my milk check before payment, I want to include that as well.
So the farm supply store is basically your farm source invoice by a different name.
It is in the demo database. Yeah, definitely. Yep. So I've got my three invoices that make up my total that match up with my milk income that's hit the bank there. So I've got a recording of my total income produced for that production month. I've got an invoice that includes any deductions associated with my milk supply company, and I've got my in-store deductions, and in this case, you know, a farm supply store, but you know, this would stereotypically be farm source there. I can have a look on my right-hand side, see that my milk check has actually come into my database. I can select my milk check. I can see that both totals match there as well. Okay, both are sitting there as a positive amount. I haven't got one sitting there with brackets around it, letting me know that it's a negative amount. They're both positive values. I can click match. Right. As it's wee side notes, we always recommend to work with your Fonterra or farm source statements when coding these invoices in Farm Focus. This makes it an easier way to identify any in-store purchases or required corrections in those invoices. So once again, jumping back into needs action after matching, I can quickly review any invoices that are left. Now I've noticed a nice neighbour tax invoice I've sent out there. I'm sure this is being paid, but I can't see my payments here. What I'm going to do is just quickly jump into my completed screen. I can view my completed screen in a couple of different ways. I can view it via all my transactions, so all the other party payments I've had that have made payments, or I can view it by each individual line. I can also switch between financial years. So in this case, I'm looking for a certain transaction. So I'm just going to type in here, lease. I can see that that lease does have a payment date of the 9th. I'm going to click into my lease payments here. And I can see, looking at my bank transaction, that money's come in on the 9th, but I've coded it directly. So by coding it directly within the bank transaction and saving it, it's then gone and jumped into the completed screen and missed being matched up to my nice invoice there that I've sent out. So what I'm going to do, I need to restore this transaction back to needs action so I can match it up with my nice tax invoice. So if I use my nice 3 dots again, I'm going to have the option to delete this line of coding. After deleting that line of coding and clicking save, we head back to needs action there. You'll notice that nice neighbour appears back in my needs action screen for processing again. So in this case, I can jump back up to matching. I've got that direct match with my tax invoice that I've sent out. Any further tips that you might think of at this point there, Jane?
No, I can't, but please, if you've got any further questions, put them in the chat so Nicola can answer them as we go.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jane. So all I have left now for the month of September, I'm just going to delete, apologies, this is demo data. All I've got left for my month of September is a bank charge bank transaction, which I have a coding rule set for. This icon is indicated to let me know. I can run any of my bank transaction coding rules quickly by clicking Run Coding Rules. It's going to ask me, are you sure you don't have an invoice to match this bank transaction to? In this case, I don't, so I can click Run. Now, for further information on either an invoice or a bank transaction coding rule, definitely jump into the help area in your database there.
And, Nicola, we've got another question. It's all about the Fonterra more. Well, the question is, when you apply one supplier to several invoices, will matching only ever match one at a time?
So on our matching screen, this is where, you know, I would definitely recommend, if you've got those multiple invoices against that one payment, your matching screen it's brilliant. We can come in here and we can select multiples on one side and match with a single on the other. This also works if you have maybe one invoice and maybe 3 payments have been made towards that single invoice. I can select a single invoice and then select those 3 payments associated with it. So the matching screen is definitely the place to jump into to do where you've got those multiple invoices to process against a single payment.
Thank you. That's awesome.
That's brilliant. Thank you. That's a great question to ask. Right. So all I've got left to do now before jumping back into my GST return is just checking that everything is balanced with my bank accounts.
Okay, sorry, before we do that, we're back to more questions on the matching. Can you demonstrate the link and match option when you want to clear an invoice and credit?
Yeah, definitely. We've got time to jump into that now, do you feel?
I guess while we're talking about matching, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what I might do is, where have we got? My accountants, I'm just going to use this one as an example in this demo database. I've got an accountant invoice here that I've been credited for. So I'm just going to copy this invoice. You can see here when I look back in needs action, I've got an invoice that's sitting there for a positive value and an invoice that's sitting there with a negative value with the brackets around it. So these two invoices, they null and void each other. So this is a process that we would use for a tax invoice more so than probably my accountant's monthly fees. But because I've got these two invoices that null and void each other sitting here, I'm not going to have a bank transaction to match up with either one of these two invoices. So
Okay, guys, I've just spoken to Nicola, who's based in Masterton. I'm actually based in Cambridge now, and they're having exceptional weather today. The internet's gone out once already this morning, but we were hoping that we wouldn't have issues through our webinar, but the internet is gone in the Masterton office.
in regards to linking and matching two invoices from your needs action, so you'll see here in my needs action, I've taken a copy of an invoice and turned it into a credit as well. So in this scenario, I've got an invoice that's come in. I've also received a credit invoice as well for that product. I'm not going to have a bank transaction to match these two invoices too. They null and void each other. So for what I can do with these ones is jump into my matching tab. I can see them both there on the left-hand side with my invoices. So I'm just going to go and select them both with the tick box. Link and match pops up as an option to click on. And by clicking on link and match, I've processed that credit invoice against that expense invoice. So back in needs action now, I can see my invoices have all been taken care of for August and September. I can see all that's left on my bank transaction side is a transaction that falls in the month of October. So that's outside of this GST period. And I know that this tenant invoice, this is not coming through until the month of October. So I don't have a transaction to match that with. So I now can just double check my balancing. And if I stay in my needs action screen, have a look on my transactions side, I can click on my bank balance. I can see here on my green balancing line that I'm balanced or reconciled all up to the end of September. So this is me balanced, reconciled for this current GST period that I'm about to submit. If I did have multiple bank accounts in my database, I can use the settings cog up here in the top left to go through and just check each bank account. So back in needs action, I'm good to go. I'm ready to jump back into my GST return. Just before, oh, sorry, what was that, Jane?
No, sorry, you go.
Sorry. Just before jumping into that GST return, I'm keen just to show you a new deleted tab here under Actuals. So if you do notice that you have mistakenly deleted an invoice, if you can't balance or reconcile your database because you've got a missing transaction, the deleted tab is worth jumping into, just checking the invoices, checking the transactions, and checking any tax invoices. If I do have a transaction that I notice there that should be part of this GST return, and I've accidentally deleted it out, I can come and use my restore icon here on the far right. This will restore it back to needs action if it's uncoded. If this bank transaction has been coded and I restore it, it'll jump straight into the completed screen for me there.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Nicola. Can you run through the process so that you actually go through before you submit your GST return?
Yeah, so we've been busy working away in needs action and we've tidied up all our invoices and transactions for this GST period. We can now jump into reports in our GST return. So reports on the left-hand side. Down into GST returns. Please always check you have selected the correct return you want to file. So I can see my return for the period August through to the end of September is sitting as a preview for me. I can click into my return. Okay, I'm prompted by an orange warning box, just letting me know that I've got some unmatched invoices in needs action. I've been through my invoices. I already know that I've tidied up the ones that are associated with this GST period. Okay, so I can close that. And that's just relating to any invoices that are still sort of present in my needs action screen there. So we can set up the report to view lines by their GST types. So if we scroll down through the invoice, you see we start to hit our coded lines. Okay, so we can view our coded lines and we can click on our headers type to group our GST types together for us there. So I can see I've got a group of my GST business type coded lines, my exempt coded lines, and my personal coded lines. Now these coded lines will all sit up under the brackets here, or the side arrows. So if we click that and expand it, it drops out and it shows us all our lines of coding. So check that each item has been coded correctly and has the correct type. And this is where I go through and I just check that everything here that's sitting with my line of coding is matching a business GST type. All right, whoops, I've noticed some incorrect coding. I can see that I've accidentally put my personal drawings through with a business GST type, which should have gone through as personal. So to make a change here direct from my return, I can click the view icon there next to my transaction. I can see where I've used my coding. I can see where it's pulled through a business GST type. So I want to make some edits, some changes to this. So I can click plus edit. Now I can make the necessary adjustments from within the invoice or the transaction. Okay, so I'm in a bank transaction. I'm going to click into the GST field and I'm going to make that correction to personal. And then click on save. And you'll notice that that transaction is now sitting under my personal. There we go, my drawings. Okay, I'm now satisfied with my return. The next step is to finalize your GST report. So we come down into the bottom right here and we click on the blue box with the white arrow. Here I can click Save Final to lock the items for this period. And File with IR to submit your return directly. Please note any changes after finalising should be done cautiously to avoid invalidating your return. By clicking on File with IR, I submit my return directly to my IR. And I'll be taken through the login process there to complete that filing process. Brilliant. Well done. You have completed processing and submitting your GST return out of Farm Focus. Remember, you can also print your report with or without your coded lines. And always remember, if a payment is due, you still need to action on this.
Hey, but Nicola, what if I've made a coding mistake after I've filed my GST return? What do I do then?
All right, so when a GST area is found in a transaction that's already included in a submitted return, you can't edit it directly. Instead, make a GST late claim. This allows the adjustment to flow through to the next GST return and keeps your records clear and compliant. Using a late claim ensures any GST changes are correctly recorded and traceable. It helps you stay aligned with your IRD requirements and gives your accountant a transparent record of any corrections made. Now, I do have an example set up of this in this demo data. So if we jump into my June-July return, I can scroll down. I've got my coded lines. And I'm a little bit unsure about what happened with my personal drawings with my previous return. I've noticed that it's gone through as business and not personal. So in the future, I will be setting up a bank transaction coding rule to stop this happening again. But to make that correction in this return, if I extend out my business lines of coding, I'm going to scroll through my lines of coding. And there I've made the same error in the previous return. I've put my drawings through with a business GST type. So I can come in, I can use my view icon here again on the far right. Once again, I can see my coding with the incorrect GST type. Come in, click plus edit. In this case, I can't make a change. This transaction and this coding with this business GST type is locked into a finalized return. So to make a GST late claim, I'm going to come over to the far right hand side where my three dots are, click on my three dots and select late claim GST. So here I can come in and I can select the correct GST type that this transaction or this line of coding should have gone to. In this case, it's associated with my personal drawings, which should have a personal GST type. And I can see that I've got a little icon there that prompts me, it lets me know that I'm putting this through as a late claim. I do have the chance to undo this before saving it, but once saving it, this information will pull through into my next available GST return. And if I come out of this finalize one, you'll notice that I have a new preview one with finalizing my August-September return. So if I jump into my current preview, scroll down to my coded lines where that starts to begin, click on late claims. I can see that reversal there for that GST correction. Now, just to recap with today's presentation, we're just going to jump back into the common themes slide that we see here at CST. So in today's GST webinar, we've been through how to clear those partially paid invoices, especially for those invoices sitting partially paid with a balance of less than 10 cents. For any of those higher value under and over balances, please refer to the Help Centre article there. We've covered how to clear or tidy up in-store purchases. We've tidied up where in-store purchase has been associated with an item that's not been claimed for GST, but also how to process an item for GST when cash has been paid for in store. We've worked out how to match multiple invoices against a bank transaction with our Fonterra and our Farm Source invoices. We've had a look at a coding rule as well, and we've checked the setup of that just to validate that it's working there within our system to give us that accuracy with our coding and to save a bit of time there. We've checked our balancing. We've made sure that we're balanced or reconciled to the end of this GST period, but also how to switch between bank accounts as well within the database. And we've jumped in and reviewed our GST return. And from within our GST return, we've been able to make a couple of changes before submitting it, but also how to process a late GST claim. So any questions, please don't hesitate to add them to the chat box. Or if you prefer to discuss this in future, please give us a call. Please give the team a call on 0800 888 080. And thanks for joining Jane and I today. We hope you have got something out of this session. A recording will be emailed out over the coming days.
Thanks, everybody. And if it does seem too much, you can book a one-to-one session in your own databases. Go to our website and book the training, Maximise Your Farm, your focus training. There is a cost associated with this. And as Nicola said, don't forget, for those everyday queries, we've got our expert team available at no cost. Call our customer success team. You may even get to speak to Nicola. So thanks, everybody, and bye for now.